You are listening to the Practicing People's Podcast. I'm CJ Hammond.
And I'm Jordan White. Together, we'll be taking a journey into the practices that help us align with our mind, body, and soul.
So take a deep breath, release, and remain curious as we explore new ways to enhance our lives.
Welcome, practitioners. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. We're really excited about it. A dear friend of mine, Mallory Jansen, joins us today, and her role as a mother and co-parent underwent a complete transformation through deliberate shifts in her mindset and approach to life. So these changes have unlocked doors to possibilities that previously seemed unimaginable. And in her journey as a mother, Mallory reached a pivotal moment where she acknowledged that she alone held the power to change her life. So this realization sparked a path of self-development where Mallory actively invested in her growth to find clarity and peace amidst the demands of motherhood and co-parenting. And it worked. Mallory, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you here for sure.
What a blessing. Mallory, we got the chance to conversate in our little pre-interview. And I'll be honest, when Jordan, when we started the podcast idea, the Practicing Peoples, and it was like the types of interviews we wanted to have. And one of the first people that Jordan recommended was speaking with you. And the concept of talking about co-parenting never even crossed my mind. And we're going to dive into that today. But even before the co-parenting, can you give us a little bit about who you are, besides just a loving mother, a wonderful co-parent? Talk a little bit about your background. You can start us from where you came from to wherever you are now, but just tell us a little bit about who you are at your deepest place.
Oh man, at my deepest place, I just really do love life, and I really do love the possibilities of life and the opportunity to choose and create things as they come, and to make decisions as again, life kind of affords you to. So like at my deepest, that is who I am. But in saying that, I played college sports. I was an entrepreneur for a long time. Now I work in corporate. But being a mom has been probably the most transformational aspect of my life. And so that is something that has completely reshaped really my identity as a whole. Because I think before, my identity was set in things that were more fleeting. And I feel like motherhood, regardless of how that plays for everyone, because obviously that can mean something different for the person experiencing it, but it's something that really does last forever. So in saying that, it just has given me so much more purpose, if that makes sense, or allowed me to uncover my purpose.
That's incredible. As both me and Jordan, as aspirational parents, one day, I think I'm going to enjoy this conversation because of the knowledge that I will be able to apply from things that you've learned. And you talked about your identity prior to that. Would you say that motherhood then helped to establish or plant or redefine your roots? Really, like there was something that was there before, and then it either grew deeper or was replanted completely.
Yeah, I think kind of how it starts when you become a parent is you become so much more aware of everything that comes out of your mouth because it's this little human, and now it's their experience as well. So the things that you say truly are shaping a life, and that is heavy. So it causes you to self-reflect in literally every way, in the way of how you're choosing to make money and the schedule that comes along with it and the people that come along with it. Every aspect of your life just sort of comes to surface, and then you get to reassess it based off what life is moving forward, because it's not what it was, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense. Wow, and so well articulated. CJ and I talk a lot about, everyone's a mirror. And in this case, it sounds like even your little one there, you hear him say say something wild. You're like, where'd you get that
Oops,
from? Oh, wait a minute.
that was me.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I'm sure that's a ride every day for you. And yeah, just first and foremost, want to acknowledge you for the mom that you are, because I know you have a deep, deep care for supporting your little guy, and it's beautiful to watch. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. He's the best. He really is.
Well, before we, talk on a, I guess, more specific level on the co-parenting, talk to us a little bit about kind of just your personal growth journey. We talked about kind of in your bio, you kind of had this moment where you shifted and started looking inward and had some of these personal development opportunities. So tell us a little bit about that.
Mhm. There was a day where two seemingly small things, like a bill came in and a text from his dad came in at the same time. And then Jaden had a big reaction to something. And because those two things heightened my emotions and I hadn't figured out how to navigate those successfully, I wasn't able to be a good mom to my son. And that was like my complete aha moment of like, I can't do that. I can't do that. But also nobody's coming to save me. Nobody's taking this bill away and this is his father. So what do we do? And it was a what do I do? Because I'm the only one who can impact it, which then impacts my son, which is the most important thing to me. So that was truly the moment that it was just the catalyst for committed, definite, consistent growth versus sporadic. Let me go try this. Let me go see if I can take this class. It was the consistency every single day. I'm going to do something to be better for him. So that was really that moment. And it wasn't necessarily this massive thing that happened. It was just that small moment of because these things occurred, I couldn't be the mom that he needed in that moment. And how do I fix that? So it's kind of what it was.
Yeah, this whole presence of mind is what I'm
Mhm,
hearing in that, and really just taking a conscious step backwards of like, okay, this is not sustainable. This isn't how I want things to be,
mhm.
and I don't want this for other people as well. So it's kind of this
Right.
selfless and looking inward kind of happening at the same time, it sounded like.
Mhm. Yes, and you just kind of realize that none of those things are going away, and it's not a bad thing that they're there. So how do I learn to navigate each of them individually, so therefore I'm handling all of them more
Mm.
successfully? Um, and yeah, and actually that's when we were able to connect. I think it was when you originally first started coaching, and I said, "Yes, me." That's me. I will be the first on the list, please. So it was kind of perfect timing.
Let me ask you, Mallory, you touched on something that I've touched on with Jay quite recently and often about you talked about this like sporadic. We sort of jump from solution to solution, like quick fix to quick fix to quick fix, but really spending no time dedicating to what amounts to a practice, a habit of something that formulates to an enhancement of some area in your life. How what was the catalyst that said, like, what was it, seeing that Jordan had become a coach, or what was the catalyst that said me for me so that I can be better for we and all? Like, what was that thing that said no more drops in the pond here, I'm gonna really dive into this area, really being yourself? But what was that for you?
Mhm. So that specific moment was a real moment, but in saying that, after that moment happened, I did take a step back and I decided to assess, okay, so what is my actual goal? And my goal for the next year was layers of stability. And so then I had the chance to take a step back and understand what areas of my life did not feel stable. And then assess each of those and kind of understand what choices I had in those areas in order to influence them and either make them stable or relieve my attachment to them in order to create stability in a new way. So that's I kind of thought of my own brain as like a hoarder's house in the way of and you picture it, that's a real thing, you know? That's a real thing. It's a house and it's packed to the brim and it's not something that's manageable. So that's how I felt like my brain was. And so understanding that the answer wasn't to bring in a new habit. It wasn't to start doing yoga every day because I didn't have space for that. The answer was to kind of identify what in my house was actually serving the life that I wanted and what wasn't, and then kind of organizing and purging and all the things, and then going from there.
I loved it. I wrote down the term layers of stability. That's something that I have never heard before, but that was something that I could conceptualize in my mind. So I really like that.
Good, good. Yeah, it's made a big difference, and I can truly say that through practicing all of these things, like there are layers now, and that feels so good because before it was like this embarrassing foundation. So it feels really good to achieve that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's such a powerful metaphor. I'm just picturing, we go, well, hopefully, I don't know, I'm not judging people if their house isn't clean, but hopefully we
Right.
occasionally, right, like clean our house.
Manageable, right? Manageable.
Yeah. And to your point, it's not going and getting more and more things, right? Like
Yep.
it's taking care of what's there.
Hmm.
It's assessing what's still creating value and what's not, as far as your mindset goes and ways you're thinking about things.
Hmm.
And for you to give yourself permission to rearrange that is powerful. So what's a current practice, that you're embracing in today's world for you, and especially with the co-parenting and all of that? What are some things you're consciously doing today?
I keep that house metaphor in my brain constantly when I am bringing in new habits or trying to assess again what is still contributing and what isn't. Or, say, for instance, I am in a corporate job now, so deciding if this is still the right fit for me and Jaden and our family as a whole, or if a different decision should be made. So that house metaphor is how I make my decisions. So I think that that is a practice that I did then, and it just has been so incredibly impactful and relieving almost, because I feel like sometimes it's really hard to um, almost be the one to take responsibility for you. You know, it can be really hard to take that responsibility and not give it to somebody else. It's easier to say it's somebody else's fault or somebody else's decision. And it almost gives me the chance to see it in a different way and just see it again in the metaphor itself. But then it actually does impact my life. Does that make sense? I don't know if I explained that well enough, but it just lets me put it into a picture and into a movie and say, does this help this house move forward and be sustainable? Um, yeah,
It removes you from you, no? Because in the sense
it
of
does. It
if you're
totally
looking at the
does.
picture from the outside as opposed to being the person when we're trapped on the inside,
Yes,
that's the thing that
yes,
Jordan's really helped me see is like the 30,000-foot view of me as
yeah.
opposed to being in the snow globe going, "Oh my god."
Yes, exactly, exactly. It lets you take that step outside of the situation entirely and make the decision that is truly best for the greater good versus being in the weeds in the thick of it. So, yeah,
If
that's my practice.
if I may, then I'm curious when you and Jordan first started working together, those layers of stability, perhaps they were unstable. Were there discoveries in that process of you, if you can be, or if you're willing to be vulnerable, um, what those layers, what you started to uncover about yourself? Because quite honestly, we are mirrors to others as well. So I'm sure that there's someone else that's going to hear this and go, I know exactly what she's talking about, or I feel that thing. And here's you sort of going through it, but maybe perhaps sort of on the other side or the other side of understanding at least. So, what were those layers of instability that you started to see as you were going through this?
Mhm. So one of them that was really, really difficult for me to transition out of was I was an entrepreneur and I had a business partner, and it was the business itself, the identity of an entrepreneur, the relationship I had with her. She was a really good friend of mine. She still is a friend of mine. The network that you have, and the choice to not be an entrepreneur anymore when that is kind of how you, again, it was my social network, it was my identity. So, but it did create a lot of instability for me. The schedule was extremely hectic, so we had and it's still up and running, she's still running it successfully, but it is essentially a wellness company where we would staff personal trainers, yoga instructors, people of that nature in apartment communities for their classes or individual sessions, things along those lines. And saying that, if a trainer calls out sick at 6 p.m., we're getting a phone call saying, hey, is somebody going to come cover this class? Or 9 a.m. on a Saturday. So I'm at soccer practice for my son, hoping I don't get a call. And the fact that I'm hoping I don't get a call means I'm not here at soccer. I'm constantly checking my phone, making sure I'm there if they need me. And that not being able to be present was unstable for me. The finances of being an entrepreneur, they ebb and they flow. Sometimes it was phenomenal, sometimes it wasn't. That's unstable. So there were a lot of instabilities that kind of came along with that. But that contributed so much to my life. So that was a really hard thing to consider relieving. And then being a renter, so I did want to own a home so that it could be in the actual school district that I wanted my son to go to. Yeah, different things like that. So they were massive areas of my life. But again, if you want massive change, you do have to assess the things that make the most impact and then kind of see what decisions you can at least start to make, you know?
Yeah. Wow. Powerful. And shameless plug here, but the VQ profile that we use
Hmm.
helps us make better judgments on
Yes.
what's going to have the most impact, right? Because sometimes we're used to going down a habitual path, even in our mindset. Yeah, like,
Right.
hopefully us working together helped, yeah, kind of open up what other possibilities were not only better for you, but better for the co-parenting relationship, your business, what you decided to do, all of
Hmm.
those things, right? Like, and hopefully you felt confident making those decisions.
Yes. That the coaching that we did together was, I mean, it's kind of like knowing you need to make a change health-wise, so you start going on a 5-minute walk every day and you think you're really doing something versus hiring a personal trainer. And then you're like, "Oh, I thought I was working out." And you realize that you weren't even scratching the surface. So our sessions together were vital at that time, and I feel like they allowed me to not only make progress so much faster, but really, like you said, assess those decisions that I had in front of me and confidently choose the one that made the most sense, which in that also helps to relieve some of that emotion. Because even if you have that attachment, those relationships, those things, if you still feel attached to it and you're not sure if it's the right decision, then that's so much more emotional. But when you know definitively, I this served its purpose in my life and now it's time to move on from that. There is just so much relief and it doesn't take as much to get over, if that makes sense.
I heard a few things when I was listening to you speak there. There were two layers I heard of. One of them was you realized your presence. Your presence was perhaps split. And in order to live life to its fullest, it's to be integrated where you are at, especially with those
Right.
incredibly vital moments with your son. And then the other layer I heard was your confidence that you gained through realizing some of this, because I think so often perhaps we're making decisions without the confidence because we're not present with ourselves. And so,
Hmm.
those layers you talk about, presence might be that one of the foundations to allow you to have the confidence to make more of those, another layer, impactful choices, because you're talking about something major. So I
Right.
just heard those things, and it's incredible to, as you speak about, you introduced me to your layers of stability, but hearing two of those just now through this program or process was vital to your transformation of sorts of growth.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's been a massive process, but it's been so beautiful. I feel like another challenge that moms and parents alike experience as they experience life in a whole different way, right? Again, you were somebody that you are no longer, and that is very, very real. So, in saying that, you feel like you do lose your identity, and a lot of moms have or fathers have challenges in ways that they don't know who they are anymore. And that's because you truly are becoming someone new. But in saying that, if you don't have the opportunity to be present in those moments, then trying to determine what you even value makes it really hard to understand who you are. If you can't sit there and figure out what are the things that are super important to me, then you will continue to invest your time, effort, energy into things that don't add value to you and therefore don't contribute to the person that you want to be. And they feel meaningless essentially. So when you can be present, it shows you what your values are definitively. And then you start to understand what your identity is and you can make choices based off of that. It's really helpful.
Wow. As Jordan would say, powerful stuff there, really, truly. Wow. That's incredible. Great work
Yeah.
there.
I think we got Mallory going. Wow, like literally dropping wisdom, and it's like it's so cool to watch and just be a part of. So thank you. And whatever you're willing to share, Mallory, like
Mhm,
as we kind of shift into this conversation around conscious co-parenting and kind of bringing that house metaphor that you've brought into that and
mhm.
being clear in what you want.
Right.
Um, Talk to us a little bit about kind of the before and after, as
Mhm.
far as kind of the co-parenting that wasn't working so much to
Right.
where it's at today.
Right. He would say this as well. Man, the start of things was a rough ride. I mean, think about any relationship that you've had, and it was, a relationship you were invested in, and then that relationship ends. And there are so many emotions and so much baggage and so many things that come with it. So then add in the fact that you have this human together. And now you have to talk to this person every day. And now you actually are living life with this person, even though it's in two separate houses. So you've definitively clarified we don't see life the same, and therefore we're not moving forward together as a couple, but we still have to move forward together as a family. And that is a lot because you chose not to be together. And I think anybody can say, again, in those relationships that you choose to end, thinking of having to still talk to that person every day, it's a lot. But then identifying, being able to, again, this is something that you and I went through deep, Jordan, in our coaching together, identifying where I was contributing, AKA fueling the fire. I didn't even realize I was fueling the fire. I didn't understand how I was making it worse or how I was amplifying things, which again was making me more stressed and more emotional and sometimes irrational. And in saying that, through that coaching, I was able to identify where I could actually make a positive impact on our relationship. And at that point, I knew that our relationship could be polar opposite of what it was, in the way of we could still continue our lives as individuals. We weren't getting back together as a couple, but we could have a really healthy co-parenting relationship for our son. And that is all I could ever want for my son. Like, he deserves that. So putting my max effort into identifying my responsibility and impact on the relationship, and that identifying my responsibility was just so impactful. So then I could make choices based off of my values. And yeah, that was a lot.
One of
That
the
was a lot said. You can start to unscramble it if you want to.
no. What I'm curious about is because what coaching looks like on the inside versus the outside is something that you alluded to is really also being held accountable for. It's so easy to point
Mhm.
the finger, and you said this earlier about, it's this or it's that, but
Right.
what are we bringing to the table? And I'm curious, in your coaching sessions, especially something so emotionally charged at times, or
Mhm.
can be, to remove, essentially, perhaps I'm wrong about this, and please guide me through this. How much of did your ego come into play when coming into this and realizing right, wrong, yes, no, this, when it comes to co-parenting? Because I believe there's probably, when emotions are charged, there's so much, it's really love, but it gets kind of twisted and moved. Then
Mhm.
ego comes in, so it's like it's this way or it's this way. So I'm curious, as you were
Mhm.
navigating conversations with Jordan, but also your co-parenting situation, how often did that come into play and just go, for the peace and love of me and our relationship, I need to let certain things go because it's only harming me?
Constantly, especially in the beginning. That was a massive part of it. And I never would have thought that, because I am somebody who, would claim to be humble and a people pleaser, and I serve, and, those types of things. So the idea that my ego or my pride came into play was like, no way, that's not who I am. But in saying that, there were so many different areas where decisions could be made, where I was digging my feet into the sand and holding my ground simply for the sake of doing that and holding my ground and claiming it as a boundary, but it wasn't even important to me. Just for an example, I'll give a very clear example: school. I was dead set on the area that I was in because of the opportunity that it was, and this and that. And he had proposed a different area, but I was like, mine's right. And at the end of the day, he's not even in kindergarten yet. My son is just now 5, so he won't even go to kindergarten until this coming August. So the fact that I was so dead set on a school when I hadn't even experienced the schools in the area was very prideful. And it was very much, again, just me trying to make a stance and kind of define my role in the relationship, rather than actually logically, reasonably assessing the options at hand and making that choice together as a family for our son. So that was it was a massive part, and it has been incredibly relieving to identify those things as they come up, because then I can just release it knowing that that's just a pride thing and it doesn't actually add value to anyone.
Wow. Yeah. Well, of course, it's your unique story of it, Mal, but this is self-leadership, right? And this whole idea of how we lead ourselves inside, right? And how we consciously do that can actually influence what then starting to happen on the outside, right? So it
Absolutely.
moves away from right and wrong, black and white, should to, have to, need to, all of
Hmm.
those things that we work on in the self-leadership program as well, like
Right.
to, okay, what's available right now for me to do that's going to enhance the goodness in my life and the life of other people, right? So
Hmm.
that said, how are things going now? Because it sounds like there's been some transformations that have happened.
Yeah, it's going really well. He is married and they just had a baby. So, and they live right down the street. So, one of those areas of instability previously that I wanted to build a layer of stability was that we used to live 35 minutes apart, which was really, really difficult on Jaden. And then at that time, a house came up in the neighborhood that they already lived in, also in the school district that he was proposing. And I said, okay, I'm going to buy that house. And it's down the street because it's so much closer. That's so much easier on Jaden. It's in the school district that you proposed, which is a good school district. And it's a house, which I said I wanted a house. So it just crossed off so many of those things. And it relieved so much of the stress that came along with keeping the other. So it relieved so much of that stress. In saying that, as soon as I moved into the same neighborhood, I had these visions of, wouldn't it be cool if one day we just went to the pool together in the summer? How amazing would that be for our son? Like their family, Jaden and I, all of us just going to the pool together. Isn't that wonderful for our son to be able to see? Even though we chose not to be in a romantic relationship, we can still see each other's value as people and move forward, and like CJ said, get rid of your pride so that you can develop something different. And so we haven't gone to the pool. But in saying that, we have gone to birthday parties together. We have gone to, gosh, we've done like bowling and things along those lines together. We've done a lot more family oriented activities. And even in saying that, like sometimes Jaden will ride the bike by my house when he's at his dad's, and they'll stop in and say hi. So that kind of stuff Never in my, oh my gosh, I will cry. I never thought that was possible, but it is. And that's really cool.
I mean, I'm getting emotional with you, Mallory, because I know how much. I mean, obviously, our time together was pretty intimate, right? Like in a
Right.
professional term, in a professional way, and yeah, and
Yeah.
I really just want to acknowledge what you've done here, Mallory. Like you've influenced this, and that's what's hopefully uh, where some of the emotions are coming from as well, right? Of like, wow, look what I did.
Yeah, it's really incredible. And then even just in seeing that and seeing the progress in that, like truly there's nothing that it isn't possible.
Mm,
Because that is something that I literally would have thought was damned. I thought that it was what it was forever. And I was just going to constantly have to figure out how to navigate keeping my wall up and strong. That's what I thought I was going to have to be focused on, stabilizing my wall. Um, but instead, I got the chance to like take it down, and now everything just like flows,
Mm.
you know, and that's really cool.
That's amazing. Jordan talks about this word, and we use it very powerfully, but the intimacy that is a family, a familial bond, that you're able to also establish a sense of intimacy that turns into something bigger that feels more communal now that you're sharing two worlds that merge together that become a community, but still intimately a family that are bonded. And
Hmm.
hearing you speak about that, I just feel that there are so many people that, maybe this is a point of pausing and reflecting upon a lot of things that you've said that amount to what ended up being a source of true, maybe it's you're being there's the pride that's there, but it's a moment of being proud of how far this has come. And
Yeah,
it's really I can feel it, I can see it. But I'm immensely happy that you're being so vulnerable, because people can see so far through what their own little their dams are, to see what can go if you
right.
let this thing flow, where it can go.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Thanks. It's been really, again, just and it's been so incredible to be a part of. It really, really has. Um, Even just for instance, they just had their baby not that long ago. She's maybe a month old, and I took Jaden, our son, to the hospital so that he could meet. And I thought I would just sit in the lobby. My idea was his dad would come down and take him up. And I said, "We're here," and they text me the room number. And that is, I just didn't ever think that would be where we were. And then, I'm going up into the room with them and meeting their brand new baby. Jane and I were the first ones to meet her, outside of obviously the staff. And there was a moment where she was, kind of moving over in the bed trying to pick up the baby. And I said, "Would it be helpful if I just hand her to you?" And she was like, "If you would, please." So then I handed her their baby. And it is just, you guys, that's so cool. Like, to go from where we were to handing her their baby in the hospital. We're going to have some pool parties this summer, probably. There will be pool parties. We will be going to the pool. Uh, yeah, it's just, again, there truly isn't anything that is impossible. You do just have to, again, be able to honestly weed through the bullshit and understand what is actually real and what isn't real and what matters to you, and then seeing where your choices are. And that was something that I so definitively learned in coaching and maximized.
yeah. Well, you're stacking up evidence, right? Like this is, yeah, one of the most, I'd say, authentic and just raw transformations we've heard on the show so far. So we're just really grateful for you sharing what you have, because this is going to impact a lot of lives, Mallory. And I guess along the lines of that, what what if more people were taking this approach? Like, what do you see changing in maybe your family life or even the community, and really
Hmm.
just taking a bigger step back and even in the world? Like, what if people were taking care of their houses more consciously, more consistently, and letting down their dams? What do you envision being different in the world?
Mm. Is everything the wrong answer? Because that's like truly how I feel. But I mean, again, just knowing where I was and feeling so hopeless and so emotional every single day. And so I'm gonna just say victim mentality. Like, this is my life forever. I can't believe this. This is so hard. And every single day just felt so hard. And then being able to, and in a pretty reasonable amount of time, it's only been, what, a couple of years with like constant everyday effort. Man, everything would be different. There are so many areas of most people's lives where you are just trying to reinforce your wall simply out of like habit and pride and things along those lines, and also out of, so the pride thing is actually a really interesting part because I was speaking to my mom about this just the other day. When I was an entrepreneur, obviously I had this group of friends. They were with me since the beginning of that relationship with Jaden's dad. So, in saying that, they become really good friends. They're hearing different information. And to go from them hearing all of these things about my experience at that time, it was really important for me to get out of that environment in order to grow and develop a completely new relationship with Jaden's dad and his wife and their family and our family. Because trying to talk to those same people who have heard these stories and experienced these stories and those things, and then say, we're going to the pool together, it's not received well. Because people are invested in you, people are invested in things, and people aren't in your life. They don't know what changing that and being so intentional with your choices in those relationships actually means for you and your long-term health and those types of things. They're living their own life. So when you change up, it's almost like they think maybe it wasn't truthful in the beginning. It's just there's so much that goes into it. So again, removing myself from that environment and finding a completely new environment, which was moving 35 minutes away, leaving the business, those types of things really allowed me to full force make effort in towards living the life that I actually wanted to, instead of reinforcing the ideas that were. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. There's something that you're alluding to. I'm glad you guys started speaking about this because what it sounds like, if someone's not living the life that they want to live, ultimately, that their deepest center knows, there's a layer of inauthenticity that exists. And the
Hmm.
more authentic
Absolutely.
you can be, sometimes we're inauthentic to people just to serve the notion of like either the victimhood and or what to self-preserve whatever we could, that's the story that we keep telling ourselves. And the closer that we get to our authenticity, some see it and some don't. So I'm curious, as your authenticity started to shine through lessons learned through Jordan, your life lessons that you learned just as every day you were starting to practice new things. What was it like for Jaden's dad to, like, were there moments where people that knew you were like, who is this person? What's going on? Like, for the better, for the like, what is, and you're inspiring other people. Like, were there moments like that for you along the way in this journey?
With like new people or the same people? I want to make
Both,
sure I
both.
answer this.
Whether it be the old, whether you had to just eliminate for the sake of what serves you now, and or if they
Hmm.
decided to come with you on this journey, and there are new people also. So both sides of it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So there are a lot of people who I previously was, very involved with on a day-to-day basis, who throughout my development and coaching with Jordan actually definitively said, "You have changed so much." But the way they said it wasn't really a compliment. It wasn't a compliment. And I said, I know, I think I have too. I think I have too. But then I was able to say, but I think it's all for the better, and that was really hard for me because that was a relationship that I held really close, really close. So that was hard. But in saying that, it wasn't something that I wasn't aware that this person was feeling, because it was very visible in conversations that we had begun to have that things had changed. Um, and they wanted the same person that they had befriended in the beginning. And I wasn't that person anymore. So the conversations they were used to having with me were changing and evolving. And that wasn't what they wanted from our relationship. And I think that people really like having consistency in their life, which I respect. But in saying that, if you are trying to grow and evolve, you really do have to be conscious of the people that are around you who support that evolution and those who want the friendship that you had when you first started. Because you can't keep that same friendship anymore because you're not that same person. So if that is what they're committed to, you do have to, figure out ways to either set boundaries around it or move on from it. So that was a really big realization for me and something that happened. That was the first one that really kind of hit hard, but there were several, obviously, there and after that, that occurred. And then the new friendships that I felt like I was making, I could come to the table as the more evolved self that I've become.
Yeah.
So,
Well, congratulations on that. And that's even more inspiring, you know, uh, message that's out there in this conversation. And, it's one of the biggest, CJ and I talk a lot about meditation too. And it's one of the biggest lessons from it is impermanence, right? Like everything is always changing.
always.
So if we're working tirelessly to make the world outside stay the same and be this 1, 2, 3 step process, like that's causing more stress than it is the other way around. And while it's with good intention, I don't mean to like mock it. Like it's back to your releasing of the dam
Mm-hmm.
metaphor, right? Like let
Mm-hmm.
it flow. And to your point as well, surround yourself. You got to start within, because if you're unclear about what you want for yourself in your own life, there's going to be a lot of outside influences pulling you in directions that they feel like you need to go, as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
you have that new solid foundation of that house that you're proud of. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm good, and if you want to grow with me, great. Right? Like
Right.
that's a game changer right there too, Mal. So I just
Mm-hmm.
want to acknowledge you for that too.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and it really is just those people who like let you be who you are, because then those people are the ones who are let it flow, They're not committed to a version of you. They appreciate your willingness to grow and to understand yourself and those types of things, and they don't have to be the same as theirs. But it's when you simply see that everybody is on a completely different journey with a completely different perspective on life in general, and you value that and their choice to be the best version of themselves as that continues to evolve, that's all that you really need in order to like respect people, or value them. You don't have to have the same anything other than a goal to grow and evolve. And that in and of itself is enough to be, foundational for a relationship, like a friendship or things along those lines. Um, yeah, but absolutely, when you were saying that it'll basically change who you are, those outside influences will come in. That spoke so much to me because at that time, I felt so I felt like a fake. Like I felt like such a fraud in so many different ways because I would maybe like post something or do something or say something. And I just knew it wasn't who I was. Like this isn't who I am. But I didn't know who I was because I hadn't taken the time to understand what are my values even in this moment. And then what choices do I have in order to support my values and what activities support my values. I hadn't done that deep dive. So it truly was what anybody else valued that was in my close circle, me too. But none of it was actually me. So again, relieving myself of that environment was so helpful because then I could shed those influences. And again, it made it so much more clear to me what was important to me and what I did value and how I could make change. So yeah.
Wow. You both were talking, and Mallory, you said something that got me thinking about, I don't know why this popped up in my head, but you sort of talked about the concept of someone else's thought about your life or the ways that they have it, because it is a comfortable vision for them that keeps consistency.
Mhm.
Whereas the life of growth requires uncomfortable moves, or perhaps it's just like, I don't see Jordan the same way. I've known Jordan for 25 years now. And if I was to think about not only what we talked about, but what we wore, what we did, man, to be still there would be so disadvantageous to life and what it really means to be. And
Mhm.
so kudos to you for taking your sunshine where it needed to go to grow to its most, because if you're just that plant that wants to stay there and just stay in this little confined space, so be it. But you really understand this mindful awareness of what it means to live life and its growth. It's an evolution of who you are. So I heard that, and I had to acknowledge you, and I hope the audience really hears so many things that you've talked about are concepts of evolution of life. And wow, I just wanted to little applause here, because that's there's so much to what you said that's allowed me to physically see it, but also hear it from you in the ways you're talking about how you've grown through these last 2-3 years.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a lot, but it's been so wonderful. I do sometimes like laugh at the some of the little memes. I don't really get on social media as much now, but the little memes and things that come up that talk about basically people wanting to achieve their peace, but then you can so very clearly see that the things and the choices are not in alignment with that because achieving peace is really hard. Achieving peace takes so much, again, self accountability, taking responsibility for your reality, whether that be your income, your relationships, where you live, like it your that is your life that you have to take responsibility for, and then again make those hard choices to improve it. And then on the other side of that comes peace. Peace isn't avoiding things. Peace isn't like peace isn't those angry, frustrated things. Peace is evolution. Peace is tackling the challenges. Peace is saying, I see the challenge. I'm going to figure out how to handle it in the most effective way I can for my situation and what I want out of life. You know, peace is approaching them intentionally and not avoiding them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Damn. Another mic drop. Yeah, it's as you were talking about that, Mallory, I was thinking about, when you go and play at the beach, right? And like the waves are coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're kind of trying to avoid the waves and stay above and like
Yeah.
wrestle with the waves, that can get tiring and
Mm-hmm.
almost borderline dangerous, right? As opposed to if you dive into the wave head
Mm-hmm.
on, right?
Yes.
Like it's just kind of this serenity piece of, this moment of serenity and just calmness underneath.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to have the courage to face it head on, right? And like that
Yes.
leads to the peace, is what I hear you say. And as we start to wrap up our conversation, just curious, what guidance or advice would you offer, to those listening, interested in exploring kind of somewhat of what we've talked about today, or kind of heading down this journey of whether it be conscious co-parenting or really just becoming a really good friend of yourself, right? Like what ideas do you have to share with the listeners about that?
I do highly encourage anybody to try to find a metaphor such as the house concept to really assess your life by on a regular basis and assess decisions and choices as they come. Because again, it does allow you the opportunity to kind of helicopter out and see the impact that those things can have. Again, if you've got too much furniture in the house, the best way to see it is if you're looking outside, you know, and you open the door and everything's flooding out. But if you're inside the house and you're just looking at the things that you want to change, you might think maybe a new couch, you know. So finding a way to visualize that is very, very helpful. Um, Man, honestly, probably first and foremost, let me back up a little bit, is finding a coach to be able to help you like actually understand those things, because it can be so hard to even know where to freaking start. So if somebody can say that there is a lot, but if we start here, then we can take another step after that. But let's just start here. Like that would be the most ideal decision for anybody who can access a coach. And if they're listening to the podcast, they can't. So that's helpful. That's helpful.
That's a very valid
But
point, though. That's a very valid point. If you have access to it, like somebody like you did, we know not
yeah,
everybody does, but certainly,
right.
again, I know there's more to this, but that's a very great point. That's a great starting point.
Mhm. It's just helpful. Yeah, because you don't always know what the next step is. And if somebody's like, I think based off of what we've talked about and what you've said is important to you, it would be helpful if we do this. And then go from there. It's so helpful.
Yeah, there's someone along the journey with you, right? Like you're in the driver's seat, right? The
Yes.
coach is along for the ride and, keeping an eye on the destination you want to get to, right? And
Mhm.
like, oh, well, I don't know if we want to head that way.
Pre-calculating.
So, best, with your best interest in mind too, Mal. And, we heard it on the show today of just how powerful your A to B, right? Like your current state to desired state was and what you've accomplished just by doing the work. So again, just want to applaud you as CJ said, again, and there's just so much value that you brought to this episode today. Um, so just curious, is there anything else that we didn't get to that you'd like to, offer? Is there anything else you'd like to share?
There is one thing that just happened the other day that I thought was incredibly impactful and could help literally anyone. It's a really quick story. Somebody was talking to me about their business and they have a client, it's an event venue. They have a client who was coming in. They were being a little bit overwhelming from their perspective, and it was getting really frustrating for the business owner to handle that client because they were doing too much, is what they felt like. In the next interaction that they had with them, they realized that this person has cancer. And it was this person's basically last chance to have this type of event with the people that they loved most, and therefore they wanted it to go as obviously flawlessly as possible. They wanted it to be a really special moment for their family, and also presumably using it as somewhat of a distraction from what was going on in their life, right? So in saying that, they went in with one single bit more, one piece of information, that they went from being a frustrated human, not really respecting this other person, not treating them as the questions were coming, they were getting frustrated, you know? And in that moment, they had so much empathy and compassion, and it transformed how they engaged with them. And I think that we all need to take that in all of the moments and interactions that we have in our life, because you truly do not know what is going on in anybody's life. And to assume something is only to make you look like the ass or to frustrate you and influence the interaction without awareness of the situation. So I think just approaching things with an open mind and removing your assumptions is so crucial to living like a fulfilling, impactful life.
Hey, man, what a great conversation for the fact of some beautiful awareness and insight on things. Very honestly, authentically, simply put, but they stand the test of time. So, Mallory, first and foremost, I speak for Jay, but I know he says this. Thank you for this conversation. Where can, just so before we leave, I want to know where can people, if they want to continue this conversation or dialogue with you, whether it be about co-parenting or just the knowledge that you and awareness that you seem to now exude, where can they reach out to you, get in touch with you after this?
They can find me on Instagram. I'm not on there as often as before, but it's just Mallory Jansen. So at Mallory Jansen. And then I'm also on LinkedIn. So I don't know what the I don't know what the link is, but it should be in the show notes,
Yeah,
right?
well, I was
Yeah.
gonna say
That's right.
we'll put it in with our show at the end too, but
Great.
I'll let Jordan get a few words in here, but just real quickly, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the authenticity and vulnerability that you've displayed, because I know that someone's going to listen to this. I don't think it. I know that someone's going to listen to this and the resonance will be impactful and immediate in their life. So thank you for that. And I'll let Jordan finish up with any few words he has, but thank you so much.
Thank you. Seriously, thank you. Like, I'm just so grateful to be here, you guys. Like, you guys are actually the ones making the difference because you're giving people a platform to tell these stories and to, share their voice. So that's massive.
Well, we appreciate it, and strength in numbers, right? Like
Mhm.
it's amazing what can happen when some people come together and have an intention. And as CJ mentioned, right? Like thank you for being a practitioner, right? Like for consciously doing the practices and clearly, right? Like it it changes your life, for the
Mhm.
better. And I completely agree with what CJ's saying. There is someone's gonna hear this and be inspired to maybe look at things a little bit differently and start their journey of kind of coming back home to themselves and you know cleaning out the house, so to speak. So um 5-star Yelp review for a podcast guest coming your way.
I'm a really good podcast guest. Put that on my resume.
Add it. Add it for sure. No, it's yeah, it's just been an absolute honor, to know you for the amount of time that I've known you. And as CJ mentioned, right, like there's a lot that's happened over the course of what we went to college together, right? So
Mhm.
just to know where both of us were, right? And like to see where we are now and like continuing to go down this self-development path and self-exploration path. I just can't reinforce it and be proud of it, right? Like as CJ talks about, like be proud of it. So thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward to having you again if you'd like to join us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you both. There's so many things that I could say to you as the coach that you have been to me like for so many years, even outside of actually deliberately getting into coaching. So you've always been the calm that was in the room. So I really gravitate towards that. And I'm so grateful for you allowing me or showing me how to achieve that too.
Amazing. Well, thanks again, Mel, and until next time, keep practicing, and we'll talk soon.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining us today on the Practicing Peoples podcast. We hope you found our conversation inspiring and thought-provoking. We appreciate your support and passion for personal growth and self-improvement.
To help build the Practicing Peoples community, please follow us on Instagram at Practicing Peoples Podcast for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and engaging discussions. Liking and sharing our posts will spread the word about the podcast to others who can benefit from these conversations. You can also reach out to us at our website, www.practicingpeoples.com, for more materials and ways to tap into the community.
Leaving a rating and review on your preferred podcast platform is a valuable way to support us and help potential listeners discover our show.
Remember, personal growth is a journey we embark on together. Let's build a community where we uplift and inspire one another to achieve our true potential.
Thank you for being part of the Practicing Peoples podcast family. And until next time, keep practicing and keep growing.